Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to MSI 2025. We are 2 games in to our first best of 5 here in the play-in stage. We got 3 days of play-ins action before the main event kicks off. And so far, Furia and G2 have been delivering. Furia dominated game number 1, and then G2 bounced back with just as hard of a counterpunch in the second round.
2 very different games. In game 1, we saw a lot more volatility, which Furia did use with great efficiency. Game number 2, that was a textbook game. Coach, you're right, but we'll slow it down. Very, very deliberate play from G2.
Yeah.
And my expectation would be that in this next game, if we see the early game go the same way, they could probably step it up a gear. And now that some of the confidence has been regained, because if you don't handshake, I think every fight that Furia goes for the way that they did in game number 1, you don't give them as much volatility. It very clearly is G2 that can just go play textbook league, go for the objective setup, right? Find prio, rotate in the jungle, set up vision, go to the objective and wait for your opponent to run into you. I did also think though that the draft that they ended up with was exceptional as soon as you do get ahead, which obviously they were able to.
Yeah.
Now, we did see Broken Blade bounce back after a rough game number 1, but even in this game, early on the laning phase, we did still see him kind of get skill checked by Gigo, right? A couple of the early plays, some ultimates that didn't quite work out, and it might be worth investing more time again for G2 towards the top side to make sure that he gets to play the game.
So I think everything that you're saying right now is coming together for me in one big actionable thing. Because you're talking about how, okay, G2 was able to slow the game down and make it so they didn't go into everything that Furia wanted to do. And then they were also playing from a position of strength because they got ahead early. And for me, what I'm looking at is game number 1, Tatu was on Xin Zhao. He was on a champion that can scrap early, skirmish early, influence the game whenever he wants to, play aggressive, and drag G2 down into the fights. Game number 2, the Wukong, not nearly as effective early on. So now, here in this third game, with Furia back on the blue side, I want to see Tatu on something that can really facilitate plays early. We've seen the fact that Gigo can be a big performer, even though in game number 2, obviously not that impressive by the stat line. Again, what you're saying, went up very far ahead of Broken Blade in terms of just the farm and the lane state. And it looks like our very first pick here in this draft, this is the first draft that this champion has not been banned in that first round of bans. The Pantheon insta-locked in for Furia.
We've seen Trundle really rise up as a counter into this. Pantheon obviously is AD, and I haven't finished my sentence, or that's most likely going to be that lethal tempo. Chomp, insanely good, and Pantheon, his biggest weakness is that once he commits, there's no going out, right? You are already a very all-in style champion, both when it comes to your W, the fact you don't have an escape outside of, like, the best you get is the movement speed on empowered E, which that's not great. And then the pillar really makes that worse, so I do like that as a pick early on. Now, we did see G2 go for a red side in game 1. Didn't quite end up working out in that one, even with the counter pick. So I'm curious to see if this time they can find something better, as that is the Annie picked up here for Caps, a pick that is very renowned both for its easy gank setups early on and its team fight and side lane impact when it comes to the mid to late game. Because you just that point and click stun, and that Tabers just does so much for the fights.
Exactly. Also worth pointing out, since I didn't cover him earlier, Draven, TF, Azir banned out by Furia. The Senna, the Gwen, and the Misfortune banned out by G2. Misfortune banned by G2 in all 3 games so far, and Furia is going to lock in a classic aggro bot lane, the Lucian Nami. This is one that you need to play aggressive. You need to be in your opponent's face. You need to be building advantages early on to make these picks worthwhile.
Also, we're getting deeper into Fearless. We did have a Nila already played, so obviously that's going to leave a little bit more space. But you want an AD carry that isn't completely hamstrung by Pillar. Now, I think playing into Annie for Lucian is still going to be tough, even though I would expect Ire to go Cleanse, because you are still often going to be in a effective range. And like, let's be real, even if you cleanse a Tibber stun, if you take Tibbers and a W to the face,
it's a lot of, you're still 2/3 of your health bar. You're still taking a lot of damage.
I also like the priority on the Nautilus here, seeing that come through, because the ability to guaranteed lockdown illusion I think is very valuable. And even though When it comes to the 2v2 matchups, yeah, I was about to say I'm expecting it to be a good amount of 80 carry events so that this bot lane can try and be as oppressive as possible. For me, in the current form of Lucian Nami, right, we've had so many different iterations of this.
Yeah.
It really is mostly about what you can do starting in mid-game, the power you have on mid-wave, plus the fact that if your opponent is, like we've seen thus far, short range, I think Nami can do a lot.
Yeah, and I think seeing Lucian Nami locked in further explains why the first ban of the draft for Furia was the Draven away from Hans Sama, who's known for playing it. If you're playing this, I want to get ahead early champion, you don't want to play against Draven. No. Makes sense.
Especially given Hans's his reputation.
Exactly. The notoriety of the pick.
He can't even hover it, though.
Yeah, I know. It does kind of take away some of the fun, some of the flair, the pizzazz.
Yeah.
But we have Aurora and Ambessa banned away by G2 in the second half. Kalista and Sion targeted by Furia in the second half of the draft for them. Let's see what G2 wants to go with here. I would expect them to go for their 80 carry, leave 5th pick red side for Broken Blade there in the top lane for the counter pick, but we'll see.
I wonder if they're willing to look towards something like a Galio, right? Really go all in on that global they already have with the Pantheon, trying to play for side lanes very heavily. So Jhin, I think, makes complete sense. Jhin is one of the best neutralizing picks. You have a ton of damage in your composition already, right? Jhin can sometimes struggle if he's the only damage threat, and there's a lot of ways to get on top of him, which I don't really think there are for Furia thus far. As we are going to save that R5 counter pick for Broken Blade. And that Sion, man, I think kind of feels rough now. Sion is one of the best blinds. Rumble is still very solid. Do see that come through. What is going to be the mid lane pick to tie this all together?
The thing that I'm really looking at, though, for the side of Furia is I'm not seeing a ton of powerful engage.
Oh, no.
That's the big thing that's lacking, especially when we're talking about how Game 2 was G2 just saying, we're going to play slow. If Furia doesn't have these huge go buttons, it's a lot harder to force G2 into the scrap, into these like early skirmishes and melees that you feel confident just hands checking them in. And okay, the Sion got banned away. Here's the other big meatball for the top lane. It's the Ornn for Broken Blade.
We have really seen Ornn come up as one of the big, I say counters, obviously, kind of in quotes, because it's not like you win lane against Rumble, but once you get Koenig Rooken, really, you don't care nearly as much about his damage. I do think that very often Furia ends up with droughts where you can really see all the parts fit together nicely. I'm not quite getting that there with this one. I think that the Orianna, from a lane matchup perspective, I do get, but I don't think that the setup is amazing. Really, your best ball delivery system is the Pantheon, and that's not that great. I also, when it comes to Rumble, always love to see an AoE CC. And obviously, Rel's already off the table, right? Like, I don't think that the Alistar also already gone, so I don't think there's that much. But the ability to actually make sure that people take enough damage from that Rumble, make sure early skirmish is so much better. And now, with how this draft looks, if we don't see a repeat of game number 1 as a... oh my, that's a lot. That's a G2 win and a Fair X enjoyer. Already playing all sides there. I kind of love it.
No, I think that Furia's got to make this scrappy.
You got to win early.
Yeah, they've got to turn this into a brawl. They've got to make it messy, because if they don't, what's their front line? How are they going to play these team fights compared to a squad that's got the Ornn, that's got the Annie, that has this Nautilus for the guaranteed lockdown?
Okay, but hear me out. They don't have a tank, so Trundle doesn't get value from his ult.
All right.
I don't got a lot here.
I was going to say, okay, man.
I mean, you see my face, man. I'm messing with you. Come on.
I don't know if I'm going to buy this. This bottle's looking like a little bit of snake oil here. But
I would never do that to you.
Okay. Let's hop into the game here, see what we get out of this one. Furia back on the blue side, G2 back on the red. Game number 3 in this best of 5 that is now tied up 1-1. Checking in on our summoner spells, on our keystones. It will be Broken Blade there with the grasp. Of course, Rumble trying to slam that lane as much as he can. He'll have the Conqueror, be able to charge that one up pretty easily. Down in bottom lane, barrier for the Jhin, cleanse for the Lucian, just as you expected, my friend, to be able to escape that guaranteed engage from the Annie, from the Nautilus.
It's kind of rough, though, because against Nautilus ult as well as Ornn, it doesn't really do that much.
Lebrov immediately ready to jump in on IU here, but he takes the losing end of the trade with half his health now gone already, chugging a potion.
A lot of early trading I'm expecting here. Both teams going to fight very, very aggressively for that level 2. Hans does it the 4th shot, but did lose bone plating already. We'll see if Jojo and IU can find it, because if you lose level 2 early on, I think it's really hard to regain control, and they obviously have to play very respectful of the power of that hook. We also see Eri there for Tuts. Would hope to see him on this Orianna try and have as much of an aggressive laning phase as possible, but into the Annie, I think it's kind of rough, and it's kind of an issue that we do often see when playing into the Annie. You can either try and pick something else that's also short range, kind of take the blow and then go from there. That clan's gone.
Yep, nice use of the level 2 advantage from Hans and Labrov, guaranteeing that they're putting that early power to use there. When Lucian and Nami fall behind early, man, you know you are not having a great time down there in the bottom lane. Props to Hans Sama and Labrov. Game number 1, they were slamming that 2v2, had a massive advantage for themselves. Game number 2, not quite to the same degree, but we're still up, I believe, overall around the end of the laning phase, as both of our junglers on the bottom side of the map right now, starting top side, doing that full clear type of path down here into the bottom part. As I really, again, just want to highlight, I want to see Tatu getting involved. I want to see Tatu making plays early and starting to scrap with these guys.
Really have to make an impact on this Pantheon. Right now, kind of, we get the hook.
Yeah, nicely done from Labrov. Remember, there's no cleanse from IU. He has to flash, guaranteeing that he stays safe, because if Hans flashes first and gets that auto fired, you know that there's problems for IU. So IU forced to use the summoner. That's both summoners down on the Lucian, just 3.5 minutes into the game.
I also don't think there should be a ganking opportunity here with that ward in the position that it's in. There's also Skewmon in the area. And yeah, as you highlight, it's the 4th shot, right? If you end up getting clipped by that, you have to preemptively flash. If you're too late and the auto is already in the ways, Skewmon.
Yeah, Caps has already made the flash engage here on the Toots, but he does not get the kill. Skewmon thinking about trying to go for that chomp. Maybe if Furia over chases, Toots has almost no resources to work with. He's just going to try to push the wave out as Skewmon trying to taunt towards Tatu, who chases after Caps, but the stun was ready, and Caps stops the Furia jungler from being able to get anything at all accomplished here. Now back in the bottom lane, the 2v2 continues with Jojo and IU trying to fight back against these guys. Labrov with only 300 HP has to think twice about whether or not he wants to find that dredge line shot as Skewmon makes his way into the top lane. Gigo tries to flash out of the Pillar of Filth, but Broken Blade's immediately ready to follow. He goes for the brittle, he finds the proc, and Gigo's getting rocked. Skewmon takes a bite out of him. It's first blood over to G2. All 3 first bloods have been in this top lane.
And Skewmon just running over them early game. Even though Tutsen ended up dying, still had to use the TP, forced to flash. And then just walks towards top. Gets exactly the same play, but this time around does get the kill. Chomps him down, and that's going to accelerate him towards that Infinity Edge, or Triforce rather, going to be very happy about the state of his individual matchup, but also we knew he was topside. He was scouted the whole way through.
Oh, and Labrov goes in for the dredge line. Remember, the Toots does not have flash available this time. A little bit more damage is all they need. The fireball's in the air, but Toots drank his potion and barely walks it off.
The play's still successful though, because yes, he doesn't die. He doesn't have TP, courtesy of Skewmon. So that is going to be It's being forced to go back, and Tatu just kind of watching his lanes fall behind, and he's been trying to get involved, right? We saw him in mid, was there, but even with the empowered movement speed, not able to actually make his way over toward any of the targets there. And if all your lanes are starting to fall behind early on, your first ult has really got to hit, right? This is something we always talk about with champions like Pantheon, like Nocturne, to a lesser extent with Galio as well. TF is another classic example. Those first ults
any of these semi-globals
matter a lot. Any semi or actual globals. But with Pantheon in particular, this champion just doesn't skill that well when it comes to competitive play, when it comes to the 5v5. So if you don't make an impact early, and that's not even, again, as we already highlighted, talking about the rest of the draft.
Yeah.
Where falling behind is a death sentence for a lot of these champions.
It's tough. If G2 wants to slow the game down, there's not a ton of those huge go buttons like we already talked about on the side of Furia to force them to reconsider, to make sure that G2 can't just play their G2 game. Skirmishes already starting off here, looking for this first Drake nice and early. Caps caught out though, Toots going in! Toots finds the solo kill on Caps as Broken Blade makes his way over and works together with Tibbers to avenge the G2 mid laner. A 1-for-1 trade in mid as Skirmishes will take the Drake in the meantime.
1-for-1 plus a dragon. That's a deal that you'll take. Nice arrival there. Caps getting a little bit caught off guard, I think, there by the damage coming through from this Orianna. But there's not that much to be gained, right? Even the bot side wave that isn't picked up by anyone from G2, there wasn't like there was really an opportunity there for Gigo to get more out of it. Because I will soon have access to that level 6 when I think the current form or the current iteration of this Lucian is going to feel better. But yeah, do note he did go for PTA. So what you see often is if you really only want to play for your calling, where you just dash in calling, they're half health, and that's it. You play first strike instead. Understandable given the lane, you need more power, so I went for PTA. But it does mean to get value out of that, you need to get into more dangerous positions, although that calling, as we can see there, still does a lot of damage.
Yeah, chunks them down to a little bit over half HP each. Still control over the lane for IU and JoJo. And you can also see Tatu nearby. He'll start up the grubs, but because he's Pantheon, he also has the ability to immediately join a fight if G2 tries to find something up there in the top lane. Even down in mid, easy for him to rotate over. And since Toots has control over the mid lane, he's got that wave shoved up underneath the tier 1 turret. That means it's total control over the top side river. Should be a guaranteed 3 grubs for the side of Furia. Skirmishes and G2 have to be aware of this. Skirmishes just going to go into enemy territory, take the jungler's favorite camp, the enemy chickens, as Toots isn't going to be able to stop a whole lot about it, but he at least will slow it down. Skirmishes actually doesn't get all of the baby chickens. So
Trundle's biggest enemy.
Multi-target camps.
Yeah, that isn't just one thing.
It's not a Grom.
No, or a buff. As Skirmishes not able to get more out of that. And I think it also makes sense because topside, I guess, Ansama and Labrov, the bot lane was substantially chunked. And then Skirmishes also hasn't backed since that kill, right? So he's still sitting on just the Sheen and the longsword. So I don't think you really want to fight. A couple of one-item spikes that are going to be really big for G2 are imminent as here we go again.
Immediate engage from Caps. Counter shockwave from Toots though, as Tatu jumps in for a little bit of extra damage onto the G2 mid laner. Tibbers will die to Pantheon's spear underneath the tier 1 turret. Broken Blade joining there, but the 2v2 is no kills for either side.
This play doesn't quite work out though, because the bot lane, Gigo is just unmatched. Will be able to pick up a plate of his efforts and doesn't have to be as worried about getting punished because Broken Blade doesn't have his ultimate. Still needs to be careful for the knock-up, but able to dodge the pillar, speeding himself up, and will be fine.
Easy to walk that one off. You can see Skirmishes wanting to go back in, maybe look for more opportunities to farm, or maybe even scrap here with Caps. Pillar of Filth comes down. Tatu immediately jumps in to try to dissuade Skirmishes. Blocks a lot of damage there with the shield, but still has to flash back over the wall. Trundle is so powerful in those types of situations. He already used the Subjugate. He was sapping the stats from the Pantheon, and it just makes it so impossible to stand and fight. So they at least get the Summoner spell out of the Furia jungler.
Yeah, if Tibbers was available, that would have not ended well.
Real big problems.
Skirmishes, the best part of that is that obviously the Pantheon is just like gonna get pummeled by Trunk. He's still just sitting on that Sheen. Like, my man is banking gold, and obviously any back that isn't Triforce isn't really going to feel like that big of a deal. Was both Labrov and Broken Blade just keep showing up in mid lane.
Labrov's ready to go. Dredgeline connects. Nami Tidal Wave buys enough time to keep Toots alive, but now the Shockwave again for the counterplay. Skirmishes, though, not afraid of that one at all. If Caps would have got caught, yeah, maybe you've got some real threat there, but with Caps not being caught up inside the AoE, it's easy for G2 to walk away.
And if it's just these two, you obviously don't really have to flash there. I don't think they have enough damage, but there's always the threat of the Pantheon. You don't know where Tatu is, so if you don't flash, you end up going down. Pantheon starts to accelerate. Could be really rough, as we do see Tatu now finishing his Sundered Sky. Essence Reaver done for IU as well, and goal basically even, but we do have the Dragon advantage here for G2.
So once again, we are seeing a top lane state where Gigo has the advantage in terms of the farm, in terms of the individual lane, right? He's up over 3 waves by himself. However, we have reached that point that you mentioned earlier, my friend. Ornn has Kaenic Rookern, so he doesn't really care anymore.
He doesn't care. My check for Ornn is always, what is the experience state? Because to me, the champion obviously still needs gold, but so much of the power in his passive is just gated by, can you hit certain level spikes? He's up experience. So like the fact that you're behind a little bit of gold, it just doesn't matter.
Like whatever, right?
Yeah.
But he's actually not even behind in gold. He's ahead 69 gold.
Yeah. No, because the kill that he was able to get. And again, look at that experience bar. He's thriving. And G2, they can go for fights. They still have a lot of power with this Annie, with this Jhin. If Furia make a play, commit to something, the exit is going to be a nightmare with that Jhin.
Oh, bunch of damage from the culling there. Looked like that was what? IU hitting Labrov about 80% of the bullets that he could have fired total. Labrov takes a massive hit from that, as now Furia, with the chunk on the enemy support, looking to extend their control over this bot side river. Skewmon still hanging around though. Labrov walking close to the tri-brush, does get found out. Tidal wave over the top. Labrov taking a ton of damage, and Tatu gets the kill. Furia ties this game up 2-2. In terms of the kill count, it also buys them control over this bottom lane. It buys IU the opportunity to get some plate money. Tatu going in for the ulti, but the Grand Starfall is not finding a close enough landing point to Hansama to make anything else happen. It will, however, force the G2 jungler and AD carry further back. It will allow IU and Jojo to get a second plate off of this turret for a grand total of 3 so far, and it opens up the bottom lane river for Furia to now start up the Drake. But the problem is the Scryer's trinket has already been used by G2. They know that Furia is going after this, and Furia has already used a lot of tools. They wanted to use them to make those kills, but now it's Skewmon getting caught out. He has the flash to try to get away, but the curtain call is opened up. The bullets are firing off, and once again it's G2 grabbing the feet of Warfare. Furia has overplayed their hand, and G2 is happy to punish a little bit of a juggling going on here in mid lane as Tuts is caught out and beat down, and Caps is getting paid.
When the play started out, I thought that G2 had overstepped, but I think Furia just a little bit too over-eager there to dive into that choke point. They had full control of the choke point leading into River. I think if they play that slower there, it's actually really good. So take a look here. Imagine that instead of going all the way in here trying to take down Caps, they just hold the space. The hook can't be found. Skewmon's out of the play, but against Jhin in particular, he is completely unchecked. There's no one that can come close. Gigo shows up, but at that point doesn't really get to offer anything. And the long-range re-engage that is available for G2 is just a really, really big issue. And it felt like
for Furia to now start up
that was the moment.
The problem is the
right there,
trinket is already
where I think if you find a big decisive fight there with your composition, and you get the dragon, and you get a couple of kills, I think things are good. It's not done yet. You have another chance here at the Herald, but definitely a big win for G2.
This is the first game so far in this series where the first 2 Drakes aren't split 1-1.
Yeah.
And I think when we're comparing these compositions, when we're looking at this Furia squad that needs to get ahead early, like you said, that is pretty damning evidence against them. That is a big issue. Now, if this Herald goes the way of G2 as well, now you've got some real serious problems. IU, though, lands a little bit of damage with that calling, but Hansama doing a good job avoiding the majority of it. Tatu going top here yet again is going to find a G2 ward in this pixel brush. Skewmon standing on top of a Furia ward himself. Labrov will now also join up in that tri-brush, and as soon as they use the Sweeper's trinket, they will know.
They have to go for this, right? Like, I don't think you can give over Herald against a composition like G2's. Ornn is going to give so much value to the enemy team, and I think in the 5v5, just playing straight up late game, it's not even like, oh boy.
All right, let's see how well he can hit these. Might not even get to shoot the 4th one. Nope, Tidal Wave arrives in time. It's something nice you can do with Nami to stop the Jhin ult. But
it's nice, but I think the Herald is still going to be gone.
Yeah.
And as I'm highlighting, I think there are parts, like individual parts of the Furia comp that actually skill quite well. I think Rumble is just always a threat no matter when. Orianna is obviously the big one. But like, when you look at how the fights actually play out, G2 will either absorb or just force an engage with the insane amount of hard engage that they have. And the Ornn items are going to be such a big deal when the enemy composition is relying upon just toasting someone as soon as they can. And maybe there's an opportunity here.
Broken Blade. He'll take a little bit of damage here from this Flame Spitter, but honestly, the Kainic Rookhorn, it gives you so much health, so much MR. He's got a second Negatron Cloak in inventory too. The Rumble just can't burn through him.
I honestly, if he had more vision, I think if he knows there's no one there,
he just turns it.
With the ult, I think you can just cook him. It's Kainic Rookhorn plus a cloak.
It's a lot of magic resistance.
You're not getting through.
The next time we have his stats pop up in the bottom left here, I want to see exactly how much MR he's at this point in the game, because Broken Blade is just insanely tanky. 199 MR, 17 minutes into the game. Now, I know Rumble is a powerful mid-game champion.
Yes.
But that is also a powerful deterrent to a mid-game champion.
I don't know, maybe he can get the shield.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we did see him fully commit there with the overheated Flame Spitter. He got the shield.
Ultimate.
Yeah. If you throw the whole kitchen sink at him, you can get the Kainic Rookhorn shield off.
Yeah, but then he's just standing there with a kitchen sink and go, what's next?
Yeah, all right.
Nothing.
Where do we go from here?
Now, with the Drakes not quite reaching Soul Point yet, and the possibility of Ocean Soul being fine, but I think Ocean Soul really low on the list of big problems. Maybe looking for a punish on Caps here, but like realistically, can you really get him? Even taking into account the Pantheon, I just don't.
It feels
really
so tough, especially if Scumon's coming up there, man. This feels like Furia serving themselves up on a silver platter. They're thinking better of it. They're backing away. Maybe if Caps steps up a little bit too far here. Scumon gonna come in, look for Toots.
There are reinforcements on the way.
Yeah, we're gonna get teleports from both sides. Grand Starfall, defensive positioning out of that one. Broken Blade knocked up into the air, but that's not the target you can go after. The Ornn is so tanky, flashes out, going to buffer through the tidal wave there. A lot of damage on the Scumon, but he ain't dead yet. The Ornn goes through onto 4. Tatu's gonna die, and Caps cooks him up. G2's gonna lose their mid laner right on back. Such critical health bars on both sides. Only Toots and Hans Sama still with a lot of resources to work with, but Furia is hanging around, trying to do more damage to the tier 1 turret. Gigo in the tri-brush, has to be careful here. Scumon stepping forward, they'll just clear out the ward. Everyone came to the fight. Everybody was there. Summoner spells, ultimates all over the place, and it's a 1-for-1 trade.
They did get the shield on Broken Blade.
Yep,
but it's back. They took him to like 30%, and we joke about it, but that is actually a really big deal. If this is any other champion, maybe they're actually able to take him down. That's TPing in, as unfortunately the ult from Tatu not quite hitting the mark. And then here, Broken Blade doesn't find the W to block the CC, but instead use it to go back in. And even though he eats a shockwave, it just doesn't matter. And again, Hans Sama just completely unchecked, off to the side. And this is only remotely close because Gigo is able to do so much damage with just multi-man flame spittering them down.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's enough as, oh, Toots.
Toots is in real trouble here. Caps ready to follow it up. Toots does a flash to try to get out, but it is a little bit late. Gigo finds Caps as Scumon was so preoccupied trying to find the kill. There was enough space between him and his own mid laner that Caps gets picked off, but they will still get themselves the tier 1 turret in top lane for the side of G2 Esports. Scumon will take that as he leaves. Tatu is starting up the Otacon on his own. Now I don't think that this is going to be an entire attempt. There's no way.
No, unfortunately for Tatu, Otacon just a little bit too strong. Yeah, Gigo going Giga there, just flashes on top of Caps, blows him up in a very short amount of time. The downside for Furia is that it doesn't really lead to anything else. Like, it's nice that you get the kill, but really you want to try and turn it into an objective. They did get the dragon, though, actually. Observers did highlight that as we were coming out of the topside play. Shout out to them. So, but again, if that was a Hextech Drake, I'm like, that's nice.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Might be enough. There's still no flash on Caps, and I do think that even though his KDA might not look as impressive, that Orianna ball is a big problem. Unless G2 is willing to invest ultimates, the zone control is tough to deal with, but if he gets caught...
Yeah, Toot's in some trouble here, but immediately backed up by Gigo yet again. Labrov coming around on the flank, but he's not close enough. Skewmon and Broken Blade both in a lot of trouble now. Nice tidal wave! Broken Blade still alive for now, but finally falls. Hansama and Labrov trying to get a little bit back here. Onto Jojo, onto Ayu, but instead, it's just another kill. Back to Furia as they get themselves 2 for nothing and a ticket punch straight to Otacon.
And that's a huge deal! This is going to be Otacon going over. Flash invested by Skewmon as well. The mid lane turret will fall, so G2 punches back, but I think you're still going to be pretty happy with that as a trade, as yeah, he sees Dynami and is like, no, never
Yeah,
mind.
he's like, all right, we're just gonna, it's a little bit of fast and furious racing here as the Herald finally hits the ditch and Skewmon will try to take the blue buff and get out, but that fight, a disaster here for G2. Let's take another look at how it started.
So what I think is remarkable, I actually think that there is a world where you can make this fight work for you, because they do invest a lot taking down Broken Blade and Skewmon, right? Like, Broken Blade is able to stall for a little bit with the ram, but still gets taken down. But this attempted pick onto Ayu there, when there's not enough follow-up, Caps is in his position to help. I don't think it's going to work. Look at all the ultimates that were down at this point already. If you play it slower, you look for a re-engage when so many resources have been used, might have been an opportunity. There was a lot of health as well that was still found, but instead, a little bit too much is nicely done there by Jojo. Uses the heal for the movement speed.
Yep.
Won't get hooked. And it's a small win for Furia. I still don't think it's enough. Broken Blade has started upgrading now, already given out one to himself as well as Hansama. But it is a reminder that as much as I think Furia's comp might struggle a little bit when it comes to actual clean 5v5s, this comp has so much damage.
Well, I mean, in that last fight, it wasn't a true 5v5, right?
Exactly.
Like, Caps is separated off. Then you also have the duo of Hans and Labrov separated off. It was a 1, a 2, and a 2. As Broken Blade fires a nice ulti to hit Ayu. He tries to use the cleanse to get away. He's already used the flash, and Ayu is down. Jojo wants to get away, but he's stunned up at the very edge of the curtain call. And G2 just found exactly what they were looking for. Caps picks up the second one.
Oh, the hook?
Hook onto Toots, but a nice counterattack there with a shockwave to lock them all up. But G2's got a counter to the counter, and they are gonna slam through Furia. Only the jungler left alive as G2 get 2 for free and then immediately follow it up with another double. They'll get the tier 2 in the mid lane. They've immediately got the wave ready to get the tier 2 in the top lane. And this game just got completely smashed in the favor of the LEC number 2 seed.
Hansama offering himself up as bait, a tasty morsel, but instead Furia ends up feeling a little bit famished after that one, not able to get anything out of it. G2, the only saving grace for their opponents is that there was no Baron for them to take, but there is still a ton of damage being done, as we see the summoners used, as this starts off with Hansama just being by himself, right? Nope. Broken Blade is waiting in the wings. The teleport, to be fair, this play was already a big win, but the fact that Caps then also is able to take down Jojo just makes it even better. No real opportunity for the rest of Furia to try and counteract, and again, this happens now. That's Baron. That's just game done immediately. Still, though, G2 in a great spot. The gold lead much bigger than you can see on your screen because of the power of that Ornn.
Exactly. Now G2 grouped up as 5 in the mid lane. Here's those full-on honest 5v5s that you were talking about. Here's what's so hard for Furia's comp to play out. A nice route there coming out from the Deadly Flourish. Equalizer's not going to get a lot done. It's only Labrov taken low. Tatu's going to grab the kill on him immediately here at the very start as Broken Blade and Skewmon having to retreat now. Curtain Call is fired. Its final shot. G2 have not won the fight, and now with the Grand Starfall coming in, Tatu ain't done. Broken Blade tries to get out, but a little bit more damage is going to seal the deal. Tatu takes out Broken Blade, and staring down the barrel of a difficult situation, Furia calls the bluff and takes another 2 for nothing from G2.
Feels a little disjointed there from G2, and Furia smell the weakness, dive in immediately. Another reminder that it doesn't matter who you are, even Broken Blade, as tanky as he is, as many jokes as we make about the Koenig Rockern, if everyone on that team focuses you, you will die. As we get a reminder here, it feels like G2 not quite on the same page. I think they should have had more damage available there, but it looks like Caps not actually in a position to do anything. Tuts off to the side there, zones him with the ball, and then just a Jin ult isn't enough. There's too many beefy boys. Ayu gets taken low, but no one can actually threaten him. And then the follow-up CC comes through.
Oh, Lucian!
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. If you hit, it's good.
Okay.
And even at the very start of the fight, it looks like it could be a huge engage from G2 with Broken Blade's ultimate. The second part of the Ornn horn only hit JoJo. The Nami all the way in the back. There was almost no value from that hard CC from the Ornn. And so G2 and their big 5v5 traditional team fight does not succeed. Now Broken Blade inside this line brush here off in the top side river to the side of mid lane. Tatu dropping the control ward in there, immediately going to discover that, as Labrov is going deep behind enemy lines. Now, there is still a tier 2 turret up in the bottom lane, so it's not like he can try to do a full wraparound play here, find a move on to Tuts. Ayu in a lot of trouble. That'll be a free catch for G2. And with the Lucian out of the picture, Baron's alive, Chronicler, and I think that might be where G2 set their sights.
Baron is alive for now.
For only a moment.
Yeah, only momentarily. I think that's going to go down quickly. As you highlight, nice catch there from G2. It's a long-range engage again. As a very short-range AD carry, at some point he's going to have to walk up to a wave, where he was promptly greeted by, as we can see, an Ornn horn. Now,
Furia's going to give it.
There's no blue trinket available. They're going to just send it.
Wait, no,
too early.
They are not going to give it. Tatu jumps in with the Grand Star fall, but that star fell too early. And that is Baron plus a Pantheon as the cherry on top for G2 Esports.
Gold lead now 5K for G2. Some of these moments in the later mid-game felt a little shaky, but it's very clear they're not letting them get to their heads. Regroup.
Yep.
And just look for these plays. And this Lucian, unfortunately, despite some great burst that he's been able to find with the Collings, just keeps getting punished by particularly this 1-2 of the Ornn. Comes in, and then Labrov knocks it down with the Nautilus.
All right, Skewmon now. This is what we started to see later on in game number 2. Once G2 gets ahead, they move into the jungle, they set down all the wards, they make it so the entire map is fog of war for the side of Furia, and you can see things are looking awfully dark out there, my friend. If you are Furia, it is so dangerous to walk into any of this. There could be Ornn waiting, there could be Annie waiting with a stun primed up, there could be the Nautilus waiting for the point-and-click ulti to guarantee that you're not getting away, and now G2 setting up the siege down here on the tier 2 turret. They're going to go ahead and use the teleport there from Broken Blade to guarantee that Furia don't have a chance to make it engage. Tier 2 barely hanging on. This is the last structure standing for Furia outside of the lines of their base. And G2 only need one more wave to force it down.
G2 just trying to play as calm and collected as possible. Ornn items coming through across the board. Only a few more left until everyone rather is kitted out. Feeling good. It's Rebel Baron power play. Gonna try and play for an inhib.
Okay, Broken Blade frontlining here again, just not afraid of that damage. Calling a bunch of it hits him, but not to great effect, as they've still got that powered up cannon minion slowly chipping away at this turret. If we're looking at Ornn items, they're empowered now for the Annie and the Trundle alongside the ones that we already mentioned for the Ornn and the Jhin. As here it goes, G2 going in for what could be the game-ending play. They do catch JoJo, and Caps guarantees he's already down, but Caps is traded back. Ayu gets the shutdown there, but G2 continues their push. It's bodies dropping on both sides as Gigo barely stays alive, but now Labrov, Hans, and Broken Blade gotta be careful. Broken Blade dropped low, but he ain't dead yet. Tatu keeps the chase going as G2 has to back up. Caps dying early meant that Furia was able to stabilize and keep this game alive.
TP.
Now a TP ready to rejoin as Broken Blade continues running away. Tatu and Tuts ready to join up with Gigo and try to guarantee a little bit more. Labrov gets tagged there by the Electro Harpoon. He's out of there, and Grand Star falls ready to lock up BB. A little bit more damage, a little bit more CC here with a stun. Tatu's got the kill, and G2 lose 2 on the way out.
And it will stifle some of the Rebel Baron power play. It'll also mean that an Ocean Soul setup comes through, which I'm given how this game is played out, I'm still Not quite sure how they managed to get 3 of those. As we see here, yes, they find Jojo. Watch him get evaporated, but he doesn't really matter. Still gets his spells off. And then here we see a little bit of a too deep chase onto Gigo, who doesn't actually end up going down. And as you point out, without the damage of that Annie available, plus the fact that Hans used the ult at the beginning of that fight, they're just a little bit too short on the damage, and then this extended chase from Furia ends up coming huge.
Yeah, the fact that Gigo lived with 200 HP makes the difference of the follow-up play, as Skirmishes has been found out in the bottom lane. He was all alone, and Furia is happy to show him the error of his ways.
The inhib also didn't end up actually falling because of the whole sequence. Oh, Caps, that's a trap.
Oh, maybe not! Caps is... really enjoying these interactions with his squishy short-range AD carry here on the Zanny.
Yeah, only one of the two is having fun in that matchup.
No, IU is not enjoying not enjoying the way that this one plays.
Seeing the punish come through feels kind of reminiscent of what Furia was able to do, right, in game number 1.
Yep.
Not dissimilar.
Now let's see.
G2, fortunately, despite those picks, didn't end up losing more than a soul point.
So it's with the flash over the wall to guarantee that he doesn't get caught out there by Caps, but now Labrov could be in a little bit of danger. The Nautilus is not particularly tanky. Tatu just steps up, puts the spear in his back. That's a rampage for Furia's side, as a 35-second death timer for the Nautilus means that much less manpower on the map for G2. Despite the fact that they have this big advantage, they are struggling to close it out with some mistakes from the individual performances of Skirmishes and Labrov.
It really does feel like the positioning is slipping a little bit as we get deeper into this game, right? People are just getting caught left and right on waves, and this time there isn't really a counterplay, as the vision should be in favor now, and that's alone is not enough. We need to see Furia also actually get a juicy target in front of them, because otherwise I don't think this little pick is going to matter too much. But what they can try to do is just maybe put G2 in an uncomfortable position, just start up Nash on cooldown, hope someone overextends. Now again, G2 do have some great face checkers, particularly with Broken Blade. It's Tatu. Really wants the chicken.
It's a jungler's instinct to go for the enemy chicken camp when it's up. Caps is going around for a potential. The calling nearly kills him. Caps is dead. Caps! He wanted to make the hero move. He wanted to get the Annie play, the big Tibbers into the back line, but instead he's discovered he loses 90% of his health to the calling, and then the last little bit, an easy pickoff for Toots.
IU getting the last laugh on that one. The ward, MVP there, spawning Caps on his attempted flank, and if you are spotted as Annie, you just die. Now do note, jungler still alive. Skirmishes doesn't have flash, is Trundle, so he would need to walk over as Furia try to get the Baron, try to get back in this game.
Curtain Call has opened up though. Tatu's got to be careful about that one. This Baron already doing significant damage to Furia, but they want to keep the aggro on. Curtain Call is gone. Furia with the pick on Caps.
Ooh.
He had smite. He had smite. He had smite. That's
a little scary there, Cap.
That's a deadly flourish is not a Varus arrow.
I know. It's also another Jin 4 shot, but I've seen it happen, man.
That's fair. That's fair. We do have the Baron now secured for the side of Furia. This gold lead that was 5,000, almost 6,000 for G2 is now 1,500. The kills 15 to 15. What would be Ocean Soul for Furia spawns in 75 seconds. Maybe we're not even going to get to see that happen. Furia is just marching down mid lane. Caps back alive, hitting level 17 here on the Annie. Furia, they'll take the tier 2 at least. Again, the gold lead, just practically nothing at this point.
I think G2 is trying to overcomplicate things. I don't think you need a flank from Caps. There are comps where, you know, the Annie getting a flank like that is essential. I don't think this is one of those cases. It's IU as Nerves of Steel.
Yeah, he is ready to play to the limits here with the Lucian as he steps up with a calling. Broken Blade's going to try to block most of it. The Equalizer also already used. That's a couple big ultimates from Furia for not great result here onto the health bars of G2. Now, Cap's coming around from the side. Keep your eyes on the Andy. He's got the flash ult. They try to go in for the ultimate there from the Nautilus as Caps goes in for the engage, but he only engages onto Jojo. Tatsu's here on the front line. He's about to be taken out. Caps barely keeping himself alive as Gigo's about to die here too. Toots stays alive as Ayu gets the kill into Caps, but now the carries on Furia gotta try to escape. G2 have found a massive fight. They found the AD carry, and it's a double kill for Skewmond as he takes a big old bite out of Brazil's hopes in game number 3. It's G2 versus Toots for the next 25 seconds, and G2 are barreling down mid lane. The inhibitor about to fall. The minion wave already ready, and Broken Blade so tanky, he'll take a shower in Nexus turret shots before he backs off. Labrov goes in for the dredge line. They'll lock up Toots. They'll lock up this game. It's G2 after a 37-minute battle, taking game number 3.
And the fact they got Ayu there at the end, I'm pretty sure he got just, despite his fest, clipped by the Trundle pillar knockup from Ornn.